On today's episode of the Cyber Consulting Room podcast, we are joined by Akshaye Kalkura, a seasoned cybersecurity leader with a passion for both solving complex client problems and making security concepts accessible to everyone. With extensive experience across large organizations, Akshaye brings a unique blend of real-world knowledge and cutting-edge industry trends to the table, ensuring the best possible outcomes for clients. Akshaye doesn't just understand the technical side of security, Akshaye gets the business too. This translates into pragmatic solutions and strategic advice that truly benefits organizations. Whether organizations are facing cloud security challenges, vulnerability management woes, or need a comprehensive security roadmap, Akshaye has the expertise to guide them. Plus, Akshaye possesses a deep understanding of frameworks like ISO 27001 and NIST, ensuring organizations' security posture is future-proof. But Akshaye isn't just about technical prowess. Akshaye thrives on sharing knowledge, both within the industry and with up-and-coming professionals. Whether it's developing new consulting solutions or mentoring junior colleagues, Akshaye is passionate about fostering a thriving cybersecurity community. Buckle up and get ready to learn from the best. Let's dive into the world of cybersecurity in the Cyber Consulting Room with Akshaye Kalkura. Welcome, Akshaye. It's great to have you here today.
Likewise, Gordon. It's such a pleasure to be part of this.
Awesome. I'm going to start off with the first question. How did you get into cybersecurity/information security?
I started my career as a network engineer probably like 20-ish years back. My first job was configuring switches, routers, firewalls, and security was kind of integral part of it. And then my second job was actually with a startup and a bunch of tech geeks out there, people with expertise on Linux, Solaris, and we played a lot with Linux, hardening kernels, lots of security tools. And that's how I started my career in cybersecurity.
Oh, that's awesome. So started out in networking and then went to startups. And I mean, you've been surrounded by people that really know what they're doing. And I worked with Akshaye at Macquarie Bank a couple of years ago. Great to see you out and about and in the consulting space. So did you always want to be in cybersecurity, information security? Did you start off as wanting to just be a network engineer or?
This is an interesting question, Gordon. So while I was at school and uni, etc., so I was kind of addicted to anything related to spy, espionage, war movies, and also books like Frederick Fawcett, Robert Ludlum, Jack Higgins, etc. So, and when I transitioned through my first two jobs, security was already kind of embedded in me by default. I was just like enjoying it thoroughly and it became a part of me automatically. So I didn't have any aspirations that I need to get into cybersecurity. It just came through automatically, I would say.
Did you want to be a spy reading up on these books?
Oh, I was enthralled by, on the spy and how people get information and so on. Yeah, I was quite excited about that.
When I first started getting deeper into cybersecurity or information security at the time, I was fascinated by some of the talks by people that were involved in red teams and red team activities. And it just sounded like the coming out of a spy movie with clandestine cameras, taking shots of pieces of paper during Cold War and things like that. So it just sounds like something that would be straight out of a movie.
Exactly, Gordon.
What education qualifications and industry certifications do you have?
I did my graduation in electronics and communication. And then I also have a postgraduate diploma in business administration. And apart from that, like I have SAPSA, then AWS security specialty, etc. But all these certifications, Gordon, it's more from gaining knowledge perspective, rather than having it on my CV or showcasing it to people, because continuous learning is something which I really embrace, and it is something very important while you're in cybersecurity.
Yeah, it's a never-ending journey, the learning curve. It's eventually you get to the point that you can float above it all, but you're still constantly learning. It's expanding at a great rate.
It is exactly. It's like learning, thinking, speaking. Sometimes I think my family kind of like, oh, stop. I mean, you just keep thinking about cyber all the time, but I can't help it. I mean, I think it's coming naturally.
Well, that's awesome. What challenges do you come across in the hiring of the right consultant for the right position?
With hiring, I mean, For me, the main thing, getting the person with the right mindset, who has that fire in the belly, is someone who I keep looking out for, Gordon. It doesn't matter how experienced they are or less experienced they are, but if they don't show that passion during the interviews, or if they don't show that basic logic of approaching a problem when asked, yeah, I personally find those two things like a must have, because the tech part is always secondary, right? I mean, if you don't have the logic, the tech part kind of becomes a moot point. So yeah, for me, the security mindset also is very, very important. Yeah, and it is a bit challenging. Sometimes you come across good candidates, sometimes you do not. So
Yeah, I find it's the people that really want to be curious about how things work. They really just want to open up. It's not necessarily some people do put the work in and study, and it may not necessarily come as passionate naturally to them, but it's still something of interest. And there's certainly a skills shortage around the world in cybersecurity. So I don't see myself as a very large gatekeeper of keeping people out of cybersecurity. So look at what aspects you look for. It's that you really want to encourage and enhance the being able to dive deeper into problems. There's so much work going on that you need to learn how to pull back from that too. You can't spend a lot of time in a rabbit hole.
yeah, exactly, Gordon. So having said that, I mean, if I see some certifications on a person's CV, I mean, I don't automatically say that the person is pretty good. But at the same time, what it allows me to determine is, okay, that person has the learning mindset. So that kind of shows that, okay, this person is interested in learning and is able to do something about it. So that's one of the other quality which I kind of look for in a candidate.
Did you spend any time as an information security consultant? You are one right now. And which countries have you been in consultant in?
I worked in several companies, Gordon. So while I was back in the Big Four consulting firm, I mean, I've traveled to Africa, Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong. And in my initial years, I spent some time in the US as well. So yeah, it's different countries, different culture. Yeah, it's very different, and it's quite exciting to work with different people.
How did you find the comparing Africa to the USA to Hong Kong? I think you mentioned as well, consulting in those spaces.
Yeah, it was very different because I think in Africa, for example, I'd been to Uganda. The people were very friendly and nice. You can easily see the cultural difference in that place. I mean, US is, of course, it is very good. Had a good experience there too. Singapore and Hong Kong, yeah, people are quite busy. It's quite a busy life there. But at the same time, whomever I worked with were quite professional. So yeah, it has been a very exciting. It's a bit of an eye opener, more from a cultural perspective, Gordon.
Wow, that's awesome. You've been to so many places and worked in so different countries. Has it all been within the same consulting, information security, GRC related consulting, or?
It was a bit of GRC. In one case, it was more of a network kind of thing. But otherwise, it's been like audit or consulting or network. And I think what is important, especially when you're consulting, you need to understand the temperament of the people in that particular country. And you need to align yourself with them, Gordon. Otherwise, you might end up being in a situation where they will not listen to you. So, yeah, it is very important that you get that part right.
Yeah, buy-in is very important. So you've got such a wide experience. What is one of your most memorable experiences with consulting in cybersecurity?
It has been a very exciting ride, I would say, but there is one situation like while I was in KPMG, I mean, I did really learn a lot. Like it was like 10 years of experience being squeezed into 5. And all that experience, I mean, of course, it is working out to be super useful now at Razilio because I mean, still able to take what I learned from that time and then apply it now. And currently, I'm enjoying consulting for the small, medium business space. I need to do more with less. And there are lots of problems and challenges which I just love to solve and gives me a lot of satisfaction, I would say.
Does anything stick in your mind as to, I've got to share this story?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you a recent experience. So in terms of, like, for example, for one of our clients where there is a constraint on budget, so had to really work out what are in terms of strategy, what is the most important thing from them based on the threat and risk assessment. and then help them guide to say, hey, these are the top 3 things you need to do rather than everything in cybersecurity, because it is very, very difficult for them to digest that or even actually implement it. So those are the things which I really enjoyed, and I found it very meaningful because the senior stakeholders could see value in it rather than someone coming and telling them that, hey, these are the list of 20 things you need to do right now. So it doesn't work that way in the small, medium business space.
So you're consulting at the moment. Would you consider consulting at a higher level than you are now? So in the future, would you consider being a virtual CISO or an advisor to the board, or even to run your own consultancy one day?
Yeah, currently I am actually playing the role of a vCISO for a couple of my clients, and I'm really enjoying that. But again, when you're in the consulting space, when you're doing the vCISO role, there's always this thought of what next, which comes in your mind. So 2 things. One is I wanted to be an entrepreneur from a long time. So whether I run my own consulting or something completely different is something I'm yet to decide. But the other thing is being part of a board is something which I'm really keen to do, and hopefully soon, because the cyber market is cybersecurity is good in that space, and the board really needs someone with cyber expertise.
Are you finding that you're reporting or delivering to the board in some of those engagements?
Oh, yes. So I am responsible for writing the reports for the board and, of course, giving them a very concise view of what the current state is from a cybersecurity perspective and what is the plan for the next quarter. End of the day, for the board, it's like it needs to be concise and, again, in a clear manner. So that is what I'm helping the clients with.
That's important to make sure that it's clear and concise. They don't have a lot of time, and cybersecurity is just one of many different aspects to businesses. Have you been to any conferences recently? What have you seen or heard that really stands out?
Yeah, just last week, Gordon, I went to Hack Sydney and then also part of CISO Connect, actually. One of the things which kind of stands out is AI. I think that's the kind of buzzword which is going out in the industry. Everyone is talking about AI. So business is talking about how to embrace AI within their organization to help improve their services and products. And cybersecurity is also talking about how to use AI within the security operations, for example. And again, if business is keen on AI, how will cyber enable them to embrace it? That is another topic which is quite hot at the moment. For me, as a vCISO, the first thing which comes to my mind from an AI perspective is how do I use it to detect and respond to incidents in a super smart way? I don't want the analyst to be spending minutes or hours on analyzing an incident. I just want to make it more smarter by the use of AI. So I think AI is quite a hot topic at the moment.
Have you been discussing how AI, LLMs, a lot of them refresh to have a feedback loop back into the base, an updated knowledge base? And so you'll actually have a situation where you're asking for potentially confidential advice and you're effectively giving this information away.
Yes, Gordon, that's a problem, I think, with many organizations which they're grappling with. So it's not a simple problem to solve because one is you need to have a policy in the first place from, say, risk and compliance, etc. And then once you have the policy, okay, that's fine. But then how do you implement it in a secure manner? So from a security perspective, how do you make sure like developers don't upload any source code or people don't upload any sensitive information, etc.? So that is the second part. And then it's also the cultural buy-in from different teams. The problem is, I mean, if you allow it to go in full stream, then people will start using it, sending data out, without thinking twice. So that's an issue. So there are like, interestingly, I was just having a conversation with a SASE vendor a couple of weeks back. And interestingly, SASE vendors are having the ability to prevent, for example, copy and paste from ChatGPT, for example. So I'm seeing like technical controls also being implemented, which, I mean, at least we have the ability to implement that. I think we'll get there. I think it's sooner than later we get there so that security becomes an enabler rather than preventing people from using AI.
I've seen ChatGPT has come out with smaller GPTs that you can basically just models that you can effectively copy and paste and have it tuned to your own business's documents. And I think other large model companies as well do it as well. So the future, I think, is going to be a company will actually have a copy, a model trained on their own data and on their own intranet. It won't be linking back to the generic chat GPT 4, etc.
Yeah, exactly, Gordon. I think most of them might embrace, at least the large organizations, but you still have the small and medium segment, which will always depend on something external. And that is the area where I'm kind of keen to address.
That's definitely an interesting topic and I think that's it definitely covers the question regarding trends or directions at the leading edge of cybersecurity. And it's interesting to see what I'm sure the CISO Connect. I saw it at Black Hat this year. There was a lot of pretty much every booth had an AI function.
Yeah, so from that perspective, I am super happy that products are embracing AI, but at the same time, I'm a bit hesitant because everyone throws the word AI, but I actually need to see what it does in a smart way. If there is no real value, then what purpose is going to serve? So,
what's one thing in your consulting history that consultancy did that you didn't expect? And what did you learn from it?
Traditionally, right from my beginning of my career, I've been known as a tech guy until I joined KPMG into consulting, which kind of put a bit of consulting spin to my career, where I had to think beyond technology, think beyond network, security, etc. So I ended up playing a role of a global program manager for a network transformation program. It was for a large FMCG client, and I played the role for 1.5 years. And I learned a lot from that, Gordon. I mean, it was more from stakeholder management, people management, thinking beyond technology, and getting that understanding of big picture and why are we kind of running that program, what problem it's going to solve. I was also reporting to a person who was like super solid. So it gave me a completely different view of things. I mean, it took me out of my comfort level, essentially. And then, it was a very good experience. So I think some way or the other, even now when I think back, this is one thing which comes to my mind, Gordon.
When you first joined that company, did you see yourself potentially leading a global program?
No, this was part of my consulting engagement with KPMG. So, I mean, the client interviewed me, etc., and so on. Like I said, it was nothing to do with hardcore networks. So it was more of something beyond and above that. So
I'm gathering you learned a lot about how to be in the management positions and express and communicate to facilitate getting the program underway.
Exactly, Gordon. So I had to speak to like the program managers within specific countries, the leaders of that specific countries, communicate in a clear manner, and to keep it as simple as possible. So we did some interesting stuff there. When I look back and think, oh, wow, that was pretty awesome. So, I did learn quite a lot there.
What would you say is one common myth about the consulting industry?
This is not a myth. I mean, one is hard work. It is not a myth, but there is quite a bit of hard work in consulting industry in general. But at the same time, some people think it is an easy job because they just consult or do a piece of work for a particular client and then move on. That's not the case, Gordon, especially currently with Razilio. For us, each job is important, and it is important for us to do it properly because it will give us repeatable work. So that myth of people saying it's an easy job, I think that is definitely a myth. It is not an easy, or it is not something you can just do once and then forget about it. Clients will remember what you've delivered. If they like your work, they'll come back to you. If they don't like, they'll, of course, go to someone else. So, it is very important.
Yeah, you're right. And effectively, clients remember you and how you performed. And one aspect is, did they have a positive experience? Did you provide a warm feeling for successfully doing things the right way?
Exactly, Gordon. Exactly. It is just not the technical part again. It is a technical, definitely very important. And then it's how you communicate to your client. And third, how do you report status? Then how do you manage your time? All this becomes very important because you don't realize, end of the day, I mean, once the engagement is over, when you go and ask for feedback, etc., people do come back with this. they do remember. So it is important that you cover all those aspects and not just the security or technical aspect of it.
It's fundamentally about building trust and reputation, and every little bit counts and it'll grow over time. What is the most important lesson you've learned over your career?
One of the most important thing is like you might have many mentors or you might have many leaders or managers, etc. And then potentially you will see someone else progressing or doing something different. I would say you don't necessarily have to emulate them. End of the day, you need to write your own script, Gordon. I mean, you're the author of your life. So you need to enjoy 100% what you're doing and sometimes go with your gut feel. There's always people like passing comments or, kind of pulling you down. But if there is something very strong in your heart which you need to do, I mean, I think just follow that and keep yourself unique. I mean, you don't have to copy anyone, just be yourself. And I think that is something which I learned over the years.
I think that's some very good advice. One of the areas that I've been working in emphasizes belonging and inclusion, the sense that you're in the right place at the right time for what you need to do. That's culture of an organization is one of the highest things that I consider to be important.
Yeah, exactly, Gordon. And sometimes it's all about sometimes being what's unique about you and what you bring to the table. That is also important.
What is one piece of advice you'd give to someone starting out in cybersecurity?
One piece of advice, I mean, I think probably I can give a couple or more. But for me, the main important thing is in cyber, you need to get your hands dirty. So anyone getting into cyber, I would recommend dabble into OS, spin up a Linux box or Windows, whatever. Do some networking stuff or application security, if application security is your interest. You need to get your hands dirty. I mean, it is possible to get into cyber without doing that. But if someone comes to me talking about cybersecurity, and if they don't have that hands-on experience, I wouldn't really have that comfort that that person actually knows cyber. So it is important for someone to get their hands dirty. And of course, to have that cybersecurity mindset and continuous learning. They need to keep reading, learning, do new stuff. Think like an attacker all the time, because once you think like an attacker, then you'll know how to solve that problem. If you don't think like an attacker, you'll just be thinking in one particular direction, which will not solve the problem.
That's some good advice. The constant learning. I'm mentoring someone. I'm going to be helping them through some early stages of penetration testing. They've got a few academic degrees under their belt, but they've been more in GRC than pen testing. And so I'm going to show them a bit about some of the tools so at least they can see what it is and be able to be familiar with it. If a pen test report comes in and they need to communicate that, they can explain it. If they don't understand it, then all they're doing is just spreading words, for want of a better description. They're just talking around the topic.
At a high level, this is what I did. But when you go to the depth, go into details, if you're not able to respond, you will never get that confidence from your stakeholder.
You're doing some virtual CISO jobs and you're communicating with the board and you're helping the small to medium businesses with some of the other types of consulting work for cybersecurity. What tools or frameworks are underrated in your opinion, and they are really actually indispensable for your job?
In terms of tools, collaboration tools, and you know what? I mean, we talk about so much of technology, etc. But end of the day, it comes to Microsoft PowerPoint, Excel. It still proves to be quite useful in many ways.
I framed this so that could mean standards as well. What framework in GRC would you stand behind and say this is the most important?
Yeah, so we do a lot of work on, based out of NIST CSF and Gordon, and we also use ISO 27001 because some of the customers are, they're keen to get that certification. ASD essentially to some extent, but for our small, medium business, sometimes the NIST CSF also becomes a bit of a stretch. So we have kind of used that and we have our own assessment framework, which is more suitable for a smaller organization, but at the same time covering all aspects of the CSF.
That's interesting. You've done some work in that space to come up with a relatively unique solution.
Yeah, that's right, Gordon.
So what's the last hacker or cybersecurity movie that you've seen?
I think the last one I saw was something called Cyber Hell on, I think it was on Netflix. It was more of a sex crime kind of thing. I mean, impacting teenage girls and stuff. So the reason I saw that, I mean, I do have a teenage daughter, so I thought it might be useful for her to just have a glimpse of it and see what people out there actually do. Because the human element, end of the day, if it impacts a human, I think that is very important in my aspect. Yeah.
So something like a Black Mirror of scaring your teenage daughter.
Yeah, that's right. Sometime back, I think it was a long time back actually, a series on Anonymous. I think that was pretty good. I forgot now from where I saw that, but that was pretty interesting too.
Do you keep up to date with books? Do you have recommendations for 3 cybersecurity books that you would recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, I do, Gordon. Nowadays, I listen to like podcast and LinkedIn post, something which is shorter, because what I've realized is earlier I used to read like 500 pages of book and stuff easily, but currently with so much information going around, I find it hard to finish a full book actually. So I prefer all shorter ones, short reads, etc., which gives me the required info. But having said that, I mean, I have some books in my mind. This is a classic one, Ghost in the Wires by Kevin Mitnick. That was pretty awesome. Again, it was the things you can do without being too technical is something which is like, yeah, really good. I mean, especially from the social engineering perspective. So again, that helps in the mindset, I would say. Then the second one was Gideon Spies. It is a secret history of Mossad by Gordon Thomas. That was an awesome read. Again, it's from a mindset perspective. Then the third one recently, what I read was How to Hack Like a Ghost by Sparkflow. I thought that was pretty cool because he, I mean, kind of touched a lot of the modern issues on Kubernetes and APIs and things like that. I think it was pretty solid, I would say.
Oh, that's awesome. During one of my studies, there was a story about if you were to do an operation, there's a hypothetical, as a bad guy or for a government agency. If you were a bad guy and you would go and get a laptop from the marketplace and pay cash, and then you'd wipe it, you'd have that as a tool, and then drive around and you'd find a Wi-Fi network. From that Wi-Fi, you then go and hack a server, which you could then use to launch your attacks on your actual target. And you'd choose a server in a country that doesn't have an extradition policy. There's an interesting hypothetical that we were discussing, like how would you actually go about it?
From my view, Gordon, is like have a very minimal version of OS, probably running on a USB stick, which you can spin up, and then have your tools out there, do your stuff. I mean, I think, yeah, I did try some of them. I've forgotten the name now, but it is interesting.
There's one called Tails, which is runs everything through Tor, and if you unplug the USB, it's all run in memory. And
it's all running on memory. Exactly. Yeah, it is Tails. And then you get onto your Tor and VPN and multiple servers and stuff. Yeah, it's interesting to know how it works so that you can determine how to prevent it.
You have to think like an attacker. You have to know what different bad guys are up to. That was a few years ago, so it's changed slightly now.
Yeah, probably there's something more modern. There's something more modern now. I don't know.
Well, if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
For some reason, gotten somewhere near the Mediterranean Sea. Don't know why. Probably I just had a discussion with someone recently around Egypt and Mediterranean Sea. Maybe because of that, but I just find it nice.
Yeah, it's a very nice area of the world. To finish up, thank you very much for your time. We've had a great talk. Where can listeners find you online?
Pretty much on LinkedIn.
Awesome. So Akshaye Kalkura on LinkedIn. Thank you very much for your time today. Thank you very much for sharing all those wonderful stories.
Thank you so much, Gordon. This was pretty amazing and a good experience for me as well. Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
A huge thank you to Akshaye Kalkura for joining us on the Cyber Consulting Room podcast today and sharing their invaluable expertise. Whether you're a seasoned security professional or just starting out, there were definitely some key takeaways from this conversation. To stay up to date on the latest cybersecurity trends and insights, be sure to subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to your shows. And remember, if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in the future, don't hesitate to reach out. Until next time, stay safe and cyber secure.